Last year on the 4th of July, my girlfriend Sophia and I went camping to get away from all the fireworks and drunk people for a change. We discovered a peaceful, secluded area deep in the woods close to a lake. There was no cell service, no other campers, just the two of us, a tent, and nature. As the sun started to set, a cool breeze made the temperature drop immediately. We cuddled by the crackling fire and watched the fireworks going off in the sky. We made s'mores, ate roast chicken, and fell asleep in each other's arms. Around 1:30 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of singing. Yes, someone was singing in the woods. At first, it was soft and airy, like it was coming through the trees. I thought I might be dreaming, but Sophia sat up and stared at me with big eyes. "Do you hear that?" she asked in a low voice. As the voice grew louder, I realized it was a woman singing "God Bless America" in a slow, off-key voice.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from me.
Sounding like she was drunk and delusional. "Why is she singing like that?" Sophia whispered. "I don't know. Let me check." Sophia grabbed my hand and spoke in a shaken voice. "No, wait. What if she's some crazy freak with a knife?" I could see fear in her deep blue eyes. She is not an easy scare, but the singing did sound creepy. I waited for a few more seconds and then decided to check it out myself. I opened the tent and came out. The fire had extinguished, but the moon was shining brightly enough to see things around the campground. My eyes scanned the tall trees, and suddenly I spotted a figure. It was indeed a woman. She was dancing slowly in a clearing about 30 feet away. She was as thin as a skeleton and had no shoes. She was dressed in a torn-up American flag that was dirty and stained. The flag clung to her bony frame like a dress. Her messy gray hair had seen better days. Once I noticed her bare feet, my heart stopped. Her feet were bleeding like she had walked on needles. But the worst thing was her face. She was happy. A wide, frozen smile spread across her face that didn't change, even when she sang. But then, Sophia had come out too. She took my arm and said, "What the hell is wrong with her?" Before I could respond, the woman looked at us and laughed in a breathy, broken way. We ran back to the tent and zipped ourselves in, thinking that would help. She didn't follow us all the way back, and after waiting for an hour, when we didn't hear her anymore, we thought she was probably some junkie wandering aimlessly into the night. We eventually dozed off, hoping that that was the end of it. But within half an hour, I woke up hearing Sophia scream. Then I heard running footsteps fading away. She was watching us. She even took our picture. I wanted to go out and investigate, but Sophia didn't let me this time. When the sunlight hit the tent, we came out. The first thing we saw was that our things were all over the place. Someone had rifled through our cooler, tossed clothes everywhere, and moved the camp chairs. But the fire pit, that's where things went wrong. In the cold ashes was something partially burned. I picked it up. It was a photograph, a Polaroid photo of me sleeping in the tent from the exact angle where Sophia saw the woman. On the back, written in this thick red smear that looked far too much like blood, were the words, "Be mine this 4th." We packed up and left without saying a word. We drove straight home and didn't stop until we were back in the city. I attempted to report it, but the ranger informed me that no one else had registered near that area throughout the weekend. There were no reports of missing persons or strange encounters. I don't know what we saw. A squatter, a psycho, a ghost. But Sophia and I are scared to go camping alone. Places that are secluded bring back my memory of that woman's face. All the hikers and adventure enthusiasts out there, be careful this 4th of July.
America, land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above.
Hi, I'm Randall, a 14-year-old from Jacksonville, Florida. Last year on the 4th of July, something happened that completely messed up my sleep routine. I haven't shared the full story with anyone except my cousin Josh, and he didn't really believe it. Our town had a big fun carnival set up at the local fairgrounds. Feeling irritated by noisy kids running around and people talking too loudly, I slipped away behind the fairgrounds to have a smoke. I only smoked cheap, wrinkled cigarettes I took from my uncle's stash. My mom didn't know I smoked once in a while, so I had to be careful. The sound of the rides and the country music blasting from the speakers faded as I got closer to the dumpsters near the edge of the field. There were a couple of flickering lights and a chain-link fence separating the fairgrounds from the woods. I took a long drag, which helped settle my nerves. Everything seemed fine until I spotted a man crouched by the trash cans wearing a red, white, and blue bandana tied around his head. His face looked rough and aged, with shiny, long scars that resembled burns running down his cheek. He held a tiny firecracker between two fingers and giggled quietly to himself. I expected it to pop and make him flinch, but it didn't. He just held it and watched as it burned and hissed. Then he lit another one and another after that. Each time he let it burn out in his hand like it didn't hurt him at all. Suddenly, he turned and looked straight at me, as if he had just noticed I was there. He grinned and asked, "Do you like fireworks?" I swallowed hard as our eyes locked. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. The way he crouched there without blinking made my skin crawl. He didn't wait for my answer and kept going. I loved the way they scream. Then he burst out laughing loudly. There was a sick kind of joy in his eyes, like he was laughing at something only he understood. I stepped backward, thinking I could say I was lost and run back toward the crowd. But then he pulled something from his coat that looked like a Roman candle and lit it with the tip of a sparkler. He threw it at me before I had a chance to react. It exploded in the air, and sparks flew toward my head. He stood up, clapping like he was thrilled, feeding off my fear. "Let me put one in your mouth," he shouted, charging at me. I started to run as fast as I could. I don't think I've ever moved so quickly in my life. I heard the fizz and snap of bottle rockets going off in his pockets and sparklers hissing behind me. That bang? I swear he was laughing the entire time. It was a high-pitched, broken laugh that didn't sound human. I finally reached the main carnival area and dove behind the corn dog stand. When I turned around, he was gone, just like that. I didn't tell the police anything. What could I say? That some maniac was chasing me with fireworks? The next morning, the whole town was talking about Antoinette. She was 14 years old and went to my school. Her picture was posted everywhere. She had braces and wore her blonde hair in a ponytail. She had gone missing from the carnival that same night. 2 days later, her body was found in a ditch off Mill Road. The official report didn't reveal much, but people were talking. My cousin said his dad, who works at the fire department, knew the truth. Someone had placed firecrackers in her mouth and lit them. Antoinette's lips were burned, and her face was scorched black, as if someone had tried to force a final scream from her. Hearing that, I couldn't stop thinking about what the man had said. I love how they scream. That line still plays in my head now and then. Since that night, I haven't returned to the fairgrounds, and I haven't smoked a cigarette again either. The case eventually went cold, and the man was never caught. But just last week, while walking home from school, I saw something in the storm drain by the playground. One side of it was burned black and the smell of sulfur lingered. It was a red, white, and blue bandana. I didn't touch it. I stared at it for a few seconds, then ran straight home. So believe me or not, but if you ever smell sulfur or hear fireworks fizzing late at night on the 4th of July, don't stay outside. And if some guy ever asks if you like fireworks, run. Every year on the 4th of July, I get chills. It all goes back to what happened in 2017. I was 16 years old at the time and went to visit my uncle in the countryside of Indiana. He lives in a large farmhouse surrounded by farmland. The property has big fields, old trees, and a crooked white fence that looks like something from an old American postcard. I had been there a few times in the past, but this visit felt different. My aunt, uncle, and their 2 children looked after me for the weekend while my parents were away. That 4th of July was pretty relaxed, filled with hot dogs, music, and some fireworks. The town didn't host any major displays, so we lit our own fireworks out in the backyard. It was shortly after sunset. I was watching my younger cousins as they played with firecrackers. I stood up to grab a soda from the cooler, and that's when I glanced toward the tree line on the far side of the field. There was a young girl, probably 7 or 8, standing there holding a sparkler. She was wearing a vintage-looking dress, like something from the 1960s, and her socks were stained with dirt and mud. She didn't have shoes on, which struck me as really strange. Another odd thing was the sparkler she held. It wasn't flickering like a normal one would. It just stayed lit with a constant, intense glow. The sparks coming off it looked far too bright. I figured she might be a neighbor's kid, either lost or just curious about our celebration. So I started walking toward the tree line. Once I was close enough, I waved at her to let her know I saw her. She waved back and said, "Come light one with me." I told her, "Well, you can join us. My cousin has more firecrackers." She smiled at me, but something about approaching her suddenly felt like a mistake. I've met annoying kids before, the kind that make you question having any, but she gave me a different kind of fear. There was something unnatural in her wide smile and lifeless eyes that made me uneasy, but it felt too late to turn back. Without a word, she turned and sprinted into the woods. I thought about chasing after her, but then I noticed the ground where she had stood. The grass was scorched black beneath her feet. Even after she disappeared, the sparkler's light stayed in my eyes. I tried to brush it off that night. We all went to bed around midnight after finishing a movie. I was sleeping in the guest bedroom upstairs. I left the window cracked open a bit to let the cool air in and help me relax. Around 3 a.m., I woke up and saw light coming from under my door. I wondered if someone had left the hallway light on, but I was mistaken. When I opened the door, there was a sparkler sitting upright on the wooden floor. Someone had carefully wedged it between the floorboards to keep it upright while it burned. It wasn't throwing off sparks or smoke, just a solid white-hot flame like earlier. I stared at it, thinking maybe I was dreaming, when I heard soft giggling from the other end of the hall. It sounded like a little girl's laugh. I kept looking toward the pitch-dark part of the corridor. Seconds passed, then an entire minute. Suddenly, I heard the sound of feet running fast toward me. I couldn't see anyone, just the pounding of footsteps getting louder and faster. I ran back into my room and locked the door, breathing heavily and drenched in sweat. I had no idea what was going on. Then I heard that same laugh again, but this time it came from the corner of my room. I looked, and and there she was, standing in the shadows, smiling straight at me. It was the same girl from the field, and her eyes were glowing faintly. She slowly leaned out from the darkness, and the sight of her face made my blood turn cold. Her mouth looked like it was on fire. Parts of her lips were melted shut, and other parts were cracked open. Her lips were dark, covered in blisters. Her hands were worse than her face. They were skinny and frail, and the skin looked burned all the way to the bone. A sparkler was stuck to her fingers, out burning into them. "Happy 4th of July," she screamed in a voice that sounded evil and inhuman. I was frozen in terror. I couldn't even scream. I blacked out completely. When I came to the next morning, I was lying on the cold floor, drenched in sweat. I raced down the stairs and told my aunt and uncle everything that happened. Their faces went pale as they listened to what I said. My uncle slowly sat down and began crying. My aunt gently pulled me to a seat, tears welling in her eyes, and then she shared a heartbreaking story. The girl I saw was actually my dad's cousin. Her name had been Sam. When she was 8 years old, she died in a fire during a 4th of July party. She had been alone in the barn lighting sparklers when one of them caught her dress on fire. People say she didn't scream. She walked calmly into the open field, burning and smiling, as if she couldn't even feel the flames. They brought out an old photo album and showed me a picture. It was definitely her. After the funeral, my grandparents kept the shoes she was wearing that day. The shoes were half melted and covered in burn marks. That's when I understood why Sam was standing there in just her socks. I still don't know why she chose to reveal herself to me. Maybe it was because I was the only one who didn't know what happened to her. Maybe she just wanted someone new to remember her story. I told my cousins about her too, hoping they'll never have to meet Sam like I did.
Through the night with the light from above.